Hi, I'm Dave from Boy in a Band. Today we're going to look at some of the don't stay in school hate comments, and also some of the nice and constructively critical ones too, so my fragile self-esteem doesn't get shattered. This has been a freaking surreal few weeks. I released my song Don't Stay in School and 5 million views on Facebook later. It seems a few of you guys agree with me, and it's freaking cold out here. Screw this. They're much better, but not everyone agreed with its message that the school syllabus is flawed. It was a slightly contentious issue. I'm soft-serving it. Someone posted it to Reddit, and that day it was at the top of the controversial page for the entire freaking website. Clearly, this shows it's something we need to discuss, so let's get started. First, we're going to take a look at the comments on YouTube. There were quite a variety of responses, because the majority of you guys that watch me tend to be really respectful, but it spread quite quickly outside that group. So it's obvious as fuck that you didn't pass high school. I get it was hard, but you don't need to cry on YouTube that you don't understand why they teach you this information. I got 12 GCSEs, 3 A-levels in maths, physics, and computing, and a university degree, but even if I had totally dropped out, it would not have affected my point whatsoever. Wow, this song hit every point I've been thinking about. Glad to know I'm not the only one who thinks this way about these things. This guy is an idiot. Much appreciated insight there, toilet duck. Why do you want to fight? I had a bad education, but I know how to read and write and make some simple operations, and it is enough. Just calm down and don't take it too seriously. Yeah, it's only wasting years of time from every educated human being on the planet. No big deal. You're a hippie, but I have to agree with you. Thanks, bro. Sexy grill. Yeah, bro, that's what your parents are for, to teach you. Bummer.
Excuse me, Mr. Broderick, my parents are both dead. Do I deserve a fair chance in life?
No way, bro. My parents were awesome. I'll be way more valuable to society than you. Bummer.
Okay.
I was really surprised at the number of people that said it was up to the parents. It's basically saying your quality of life should be dictated by luck. Because some people's parents are uneducated, some people's parents freaking suck at parenting, and 153 million children's parents are dead. But screw them, bro. Bummer. Or if you're not quite that selfless, it's saying, I would rather receive first aid from someone taught by their parents than by a qualified teacher at school. The 1,000 dislikes are teachers. There's a lot of teachers that really supported this message because they don't control what the syllabus is. I showed my mother, who is a teacher, the Don't Stay in School video. She said it was excellent and that she can't fault it. And there were tons of similar messages from teachers who were as frustrated as we are about this entire system being so inefficient. My mom started watching your videos. That feels like a reverse playground insult. My mom started watching it. If you made algebra, geometry, and higher maths not mandatory, how many kids would choose to learn it? Probably not a single one. Consequently, you'd get generations of people who'd not be able to become scientists or technicians. This makes assumptions that kids aren't naturally curious about these kinds of things. I'm positing that kids are being put off those topics because they're forced into them. Because there is a lack of scientists, engineers, and programmers, and that's a whole different issue to address, but I don't know whether forcing children to dedicate years of their life to things they have no interest in is the way to encourage them in that. After YouTube, I also uploaded on Facebook, which is where it was the most popular, with 130,000 people sharing it. Which would have been fantastic if it wasn't for the fact that they wouldn't let me choose a thumbnail, so 5 million people were presented with this. Great. Thanks for that, Zucky.
Hey Dave, no problem, mate.
Absolutely love this. My daughter won't be going to school. We home educate. And don't let the name fool you, home education is a bit of a misnomer. We actually spend very little time at home and a lot out and about learning from practical activities, everyday experiences, and opportunities in our community. Lots of homeschooling moms really resonated with this message, which makes me laugh at the thought of thousands of moms suddenly get into screaming rap music. My perception of homeschooling prior to that was crazy Christian fundamentalists holding their kids back and forcing them to wear this. But it turns out there's a lot of people on the total other side of the spectrum who are just terrified to let their kids have their creativity beaten out of them and years of their potential development wasted. And this can be awesome for kids with well-educated parents, but the problem is this is not scalable. For a start, for the majority of families, both parents work. They don't have time to teach their kids in addition to feeding and clothing and keeping a roof over their heads. This change needs to happen in schools. From the vibe I got, I think if the school system changed, a lot of these parents would love to let their kids go there. Schools are all about indoctrination and dumbing down. Self-education is the way. Do not go to school. I think we need to fix school rather than stop going to it. This is useless rhetoric. Here is an example of a sentence that perfectly describes itself. Hear this. Get a haircut. Quit whining and do something productive with your life. Stop blaming everyone else for your inability to function in a normal society. Why do so many of the people that are against me care so much about the length of my freaking hair? You need to listen to some of my other songs.
Something's wrong if some big long strands of hair can shake your worldview.
I guess he thinks the world owes him a living and everything that will make him happy. Get a grip on reality, kid. I worked hard to build a career for myself, so I'm not quite sure what you're talking about there, and this wouldn't help me if it was implemented. It would help the kids currently in school. Sounds like you're mad at your parents. I love my mom and dad. Where did you get that from? They're incredibly intelligent, considerate people. This is unbelievably true. Education in schools are pointless for the future. Everyone is forced to find out the most important things about life in their own time, which is limited by the waste of time that is school. Am I the only one who thought he was a girl? No. I like that you're encouraging a debate on this topic. I don't agree with you, but liked the method of delivery. I wonder if Shakespeare influenced your poetic dissidence. More Eminem than Shakespeare, but thanks for being so reasonable. And the top comment on Facebook was this one, which had 2 points to make. I went to a pretty damn awful high school. Worst in my county, in fact. Ended up with a PhD in nuclear physics in the end. Those isotopes you mentioned? My bread and butter day in, day out. Mathematics I use daily, if not hourly. First thing to say, the majority of people won't use isotopes or complex algebra in their entire lives. And second, I'm not saying that we should remove them entirely. You would have still been able to learn that stuff, but you would have chosen to do so. Way too much is mandatory in school at current. Do you want to know what the real problem is with today's society? A massive sense of self-entitlement. There is absolutely no excuse blaming education systems for our general ignorance. We can only blame ourselves. Education systems are the exact solution we came up with to remedy ignorance. If we are still ignorant, that solution is not working properly. We are entitled to it. It says so in our human rights. Education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality and to the strengthening of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. That pretty clearly says you should be taught your human rights, but I guess it's understandable you didn't know that since you weren't taught your human rights. Over on Twitter, people were taking to use the hashtag, but not everyone liked it. Your hashtag and song are misleading. Kids will genuinely think they shouldn't stay in school. A lot of people said they really resonated with the message of the song, but didn't like my choice of title. So let me clarify, I am not saying kids should drop out of school. The last lines of the song gave context that don't stay in school is referring to the pointless topics, not to students. I titled it that way because I don't imagine 5 million people would be discussing this incredibly important issue if I released the song The Syllabus Has Inefficient Aspects to It. Leading on from this though, there were a lot more people saying they were worried kids would take it the wrong way than there were kids taking it the wrong way. In fact, I saw more kids showing they understood the message and explaining they agree that the syllabus needs to change. Hey Dave, I'm in 6th grade and they are only teaching us one thing that you didn't learn, and that is tax. Just wanted to point that out. Great message by the way, and I do know you are not telling us to drop out of school. Then the video got posted on Reddit in various different contexts. Super edgy 22-year-old raps about how useless school is. But the most successful post was titled, "He may be British, but the point applies in the US as well." And it had the top comment, "I suppose a British response is called for." Linking to this video from Stephen Fry.
It's extraordinary. It's always the children who say, sir, what's the point of geometry? Or what's the point of Latin? Who end up having no job, being alcoholic, and they don't notice that the ones who actually find knowledge for its own sake and pleasure and information in the history and in the world and nature around us, getting on and doing things with their fucking lives.
Now, I love Stephen Fry. I binge-watch QI, I've heard the Harry Potter audiobooks, hell, we both have a burning passion for electronic music.
Dubstep is my life.
But if what he said was true, perhaps the reason these people ended up jobless and alcoholic was because they were forced for the entire of their formative years for the majority of their waking time to sit in one place learning in a format they didn't resonate with until their intrinsic curiosity was beaten out of them. However, I don't think it is always those types of people, because a huge amount of kids currently in school that commented on this video had really eloquent views on this and have interests they would love to pursue but are forced to waste all of their motivation on learning pointless things they are completely uninterested in. Not everyone loves learning for the sake of learning, and that's okay. Many of these people just have incredibly specific interests. But again, I don't hate you, Stephen, you're still brilliant. And the most upvoted comment I saw on Reddit was, "Google. Seriously, this shit doesn't stick anymore when you have humanity's collective knowledge at your fingertips. You want to learn how to do your taxes? Fucking YouTube. There are a myriad of videos on the subject. Want to learn how to vote? Go to the government website. Maths, science, English, physics are the foundations. You're expected to get off your arse and go find things out for yourself too. But I guess we gotta be edgy. Yeah, fuck school." But despite it being the most upvoted thing, it doesn't address the point at all. Why are we learning this set of things? Why do you think we should Google these certain things? Why shouldn't we Google the quadratic equation? Why are Oxbow Lakes specifically more of a priority than knowing how to stop someone bleeding to death? We won't all think of every useful bit of information independently of one another. A great YouTube comment account phrased it, "We don't know what we don't know after all." If we all relied on Google, we'd miss things. We'd make mistakes which could easily be rectified by a teacher. And lastly, one thing I saw a lot on all of the platforms it was uploaded to were people saying things like this. What fucking school did he go to? I went to a standard British inner city state school and learned about pretty much everything he is talking about bar tax. He went to school and ignored all the things they tried to teach him, then made a song pretending they didn't. He's ignorant as fuck. I recall being taught about tons of stuff he's crying about. I think Boy in a Band might have spent a little too much time dyeing his hair, smoking pot and trying to be a rock star, and should have spent a little more time paying attention in class. About dyeing my hair, I really didn't. Back then I looked like Harry Potter if he was a serial killer. And I've never done any drugs in my life, though American security guards in airports always ask that question. But just like the guy who assumed I dropped out, even if I was a slacker or took drugs or hated learning, my points would still be valid. Those kinds of ad hominem attacks don't address the issue. This argument from people who did get taught some of these things was answered really well by this comment I saw. Those of you who've gotten decent educations, taught what Dave was not, don't see the lesser school systems because you don't come into contact with the people who've been subjected to them. It's like how rich people don't have to socialize with those who aren't as well off. There's a huge divide because of the difference in social groups and abilities. You're on an almost unattainable tier by default, just because you learn basic life skills at a very young age when everyone else has to seek them out autodidactically much later in life if their family isn't responsible or caring enough to teach them. Exactly. Freaking exactly that. Even if you were taught all those things, which is great by the way, kudos to whichever education system you're in, millions of us were not taught them. And more importantly, millions of people currently in mandatory education will still not be taught these things. And what I've learned from the thousands of comments from people who make this argument, it looks like people don't know that, meaning there is a gap in their education as well. What it comes down to is that the syllabus was decided hundreds of years ago, and what is being taught right now has stemmed from that initial arbitrary decision and has not had any sort of major overhaul, despite the jobs and lifestyle we're preparing kids for being completely different. We've agreed in our human rights that everyone should be taught, but we've never had the global conversation about what should be taught. Ideally, we'd have some system where we could all put in the different topics we think are useful for everyone and useful for the most in-demand jobs, contrast it with studies showing the amount of time optimally that a kid can spend learning without destroying their mental or physical health, and use that to prioritize with scientific evidence which lessons should be taught. Practically though, since that's a bit utopian to put into practice, I think most people want something to happen but don't know what they can do. So if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them in the comments. I'm going to release a video soon saying what I'll be doing about the problem and also suggesting some things we can do collectively, since loads of you have shown that you actually really care about this. I do not want to just let this video say something and then do nothing. There's enough of us here together now that we can make an impact. Thank you so much to everyone who's posted your comments all over the internet on both sides of the fence. I really appreciate it. Let me know what your ideas are in the comments. Cheers for watching and have a nice day. Hi, I'm Dave from Boy in a Band. Sometimes you come across people who completely change your perception of what a human being is capable of. Today I'm going to show you one of those people.